All right, thank you guys. We're in our ProLinkHFA webinar series for 2023. Again, we appreciate you tuning in to join us, and a lot of you are regulars, which we really appreciate, both clients and partners of ours and industry experts across affordable housing. We really do appreciate you taking the time to join us. So today we're going to be talking about change management best practices. Just quickly going over our agenda here. I'm going to cover just our general intro information first, which I always do. I'll take just a couple minutes to do that for those of us who are new to these, and then we'll get into our business presentation. And I'll go over kind of the webinar, how these work in just a minute. But the topics for today, we're going to cover change management at an overview level, key change management components for a successful implementation, what organizational readiness and software adoption really are, and then set the stage for success. What do we need in place to really succeed at a project like this and then continue to succeed once you're live using a new system? And then finally, software adoption, which is what we're going to get into at that point, is that ongoing roadmap to continue to adopt and evolve with your tool set and your business processes together, right? So today, speakers, that's myself. I'm the Executive VP for ProLink, and then I'm joined by Dee Pucciarelli, who's our Director of Customer Success. She was on with us in our last webinar as well. With Rhode Island Housing was with us as a guest who just went live with ProLink in November. So we were introduced to Dee on the webinar series for the first time last time, I believe. I think that was your first one, Dee. Maybe I missed. Okay. All right, so let's go through general info real quick before getting started. Again, these webinars happen on a monthly basis. I think it's the first Wednesday of every month. They're 45 minutes long. Historically, we've kind of broken these up for the most part between a business topic, and then a lot of times we'll do a technical demo of ProLinkHFA that supports whatever business topic we are discussing at more of an industry level, best practice level. This year, we're kind of changing things slightly with the way that we approach these webinars, in that we're establishing themes on a quarterly basis. And so that helps to steer the conversation and maybe the crowd tuning in on a quarterly basis. And we iteratively kind of work through the months to evolve the topic. So this quarter's trend and theme is adoption and implementation methodology and best practices, which is why you're seeing the topics that you have seen just previously, this one and probably one more series. Towards the summer, we will likely move into more technical and business case marriages, where we actually have a technical demo component to these. So stay tuned for those. We do have some updates coming this summer that we're excited to share with you. Also, we will be updating this audience on average income test and some of those enhancements that we're making from a regulatory incentive as well. So stay tuned for those and continue to join us. Going into ProLink and who we are, if you do happen to be new, we are not so new to the affordable industry. I think we're coming up on, we say 20 plus years. We've been in the affordable business since the early 2000s. We've been an established company since the late 90s, and we support really what we call the three pillars of affordable housing. State and local housing finance agencies were the first clients that we served and our most prominent group that we serve within affordable today. We also support a good number of tax credit syndicators and investors. A lot of the larger syndicators use ProLink, and so we're happy to do that, as well as developers. Developers use ProLink. They've kind of inherited it initially in using Procorum, which is our collaboration portal, our third-party collaboration portal that helps our agencies connect to their partners. And we've, over the years, been able to offer additional services through Procorum to support developers. So we are in the business of creating holistic tools, both across different parties in affordable. So connecting partners and clients with our state agencies, and then that syndicator and investor piece of the puzzle. We want those parties to work together as efficiently as possible. We're all tracking and needing to follow a very similar information. So how do we work together to make that happen? And then also, how do we build systems that are holistic and provide for a single source of record keeping and those things that you can depend on across your agency and across your businesses, from that very initial contact stage through origination and development and construction and into asset management and compliance. So that's what we do. That's what we focus on to bring efficiency to this industry, and hopefully, as a result, make it easier to build and maintain affordable housing. So the majority of our team, we're all technologists for the most part, some more than others. I'm not so much of a technologist, but I do know this industry pretty well, having served these clients over the years. And we do have a lot of industry expertise as well, through some of our employees who have worked in the industry over the years or have grown up with us, have been with us for 15 plus years. So we are very dedicated to the industry that we serve. This kind of continues to discuss that. We have 17 state housing agencies currently using ProLinkHFA, as well as 2 supportive services agencies managing their programs through ProLinkHFA. We are currently supporting additionally 5 syndicators on ProLink AIM. We also have a few clients on ProLink Plus, which supports the Homeowner Assistance Fund program as well. So we have a number of products, a number of different groups that we're serving. Industry partnerships are very important to us and have increasingly continued to be so, especially through the most recent years. NCSHA and the NAMA standards group for XML are 2 of the partnerships that we really are actively members of and help lead. We continue to do that. NAMA is actually supporting that working group, that standards group, through Procorum. So they use Procorum as the platform to host that group. We recently put on a user group training that was open to, it was a tenant portal training. So since we're in that season right now where we're all getting our tenant events in and going through compliance, we put out a training on that subject for our state agencies, clients and partners, those property managers logging in. And we talked a lot about NAMA, had a lot of people sign up to be members of that standards group after that training. And so I highly suggest, if you have any interest in joining that group and being part of the conversation about what fields and data is required and needed to be automated and updated coming out of those property management systems and available for your software, please reach out to us and we can get you enrolled in that group so you can hear or actively be a part of that discussion and those decisions being made. So that is one of the areas that we focus on. And then industry education, these webinars, and continuing to reach out and be more connected to our audience is, again, something that has evolved, especially over recent years. And we're really excited to have this venue with you. And then finally, technology leadership. We do have partnerships with Amazon Web Services and DocuSign, which is integrated into our ProLink Plus tool. And we see ourselves as, we're a purpose-built for the affordable industry, and we love it when we get the chance to use other purpose-built, wonderful tools out there, larger tools out there, to integrate and support our clients even better. We don't need to recreate everything imaginable. We don't need our own DocuSign technology if we can integrate well with it in our applications. So that's what we look to do and really leverage each other. These organizations have focused on technology over the years. Again, this is just a quick little picture. You can see we're almost connected coast to coast. I always like to say that because we nearly are, and maybe one day we will be. That's really zeroing in on a couple of states there in the middle, but we do support 17 housing agencies. Again, those 2 supportive agencies on ProLinkHFA, which is the majority of those clients. And really what this webinar focuses on is our ProLinkHFA related business. So this is LIHTC and supporting programs around LIHTC and multifamily, some single family as well. You can see ProLinkHFA represented at the top there, which is that database of record. It's the system that our agencies are logging into every day. to do their work. And then we have Procorum supporting that database of record and allowing for all of those channels of information coming in from your partners. So we have our NOFA application process running through Procorum. We have construction draws going through our budget construction app in Procorum called Budget Pro. And then we have our compliance reporting, including that tenant event submission portal that we have in Procorum. So you can see the number of different parties that are providing information through that avenue of Procorum. And then we have Smart Docs, that is an Excel and Word add-in tool, often used to help translate information from one source of Procorum into ProLinkHFA, and then also exporting out to utilize in some of the tools that you don't want to give up and you don't want to automate necessarily, such as your underwriting model. So that is generally how our tools work together. They're continuing to evolve. We have very large roadmaps for all of these products. And so we look forward to providing those updates to you through this webinar. And please reach out if you're interested or wanting to know more about how these pieces work together. This is a quick picture of our main core modules within ProLinkHFA. So it's kind of at its core, at its base product level. We have our multifamily development and bond financing module. We have our asset management and compliance module, and we do have a single family development module as well. And then we have a couple other kind of emphasized tools that we have built over the years, including supportive services functionality, REO, and then Budget Pro, again, is that tool I mentioned before, which allows for construction management and draw submission through Procorum from those developers. Okay, so that was my overview. Yep, I thought I clicked twice here. And now we're going to get into our business presentation. I'm going to kick us off really quick with just an overview on why we feel change management is important at ProLink. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. Change management is, I think it's something that could probably be applied to every project that you really go after for all kinds of reasons. The reasons why, you know, if you Google it, the top reasons that come up is fast-paced dynamic business environments require change management plans to be in place, needing to reorganize the work culture to meet demands, consumer expectations to be better, faster, and cheaper, and it's no different for software, right? And rapidly emerging technology, so needing to really change quickly as an organization to meet demands of technology, of business requirements, and ask from your clients. And then you have things like environmentally or like COVID that come in that really kind of wake us all up and make us very keenly aware of how important change management can be in preparing and really evolving with it over time. I can say from a kind of a personal ProLink perspective that the implementations that we are involved with, the ones that go the best are the ones that really take the time in advance to consider change management best practices and make a plan that fits their agency. We're going to go over a number of ideas, a number of different things that you should consider, and not all of them need to be done. It's like almost overkill to some degree, right? You can't do it all. But of those things, what's really going to hit home with your agency? What's most important to see success in large projects, whether it's a software implementation, which we're focusing on, or other large projects that you might be going through as an organization? I think it's always important to run through and consider approach. And really, I do believe kind of the way a project kicks off is the way that it's going to end in a lot of scenarios. So if it kicks off with great leadership support and involvement and the right people involved and excitement and all of that happening, then usually it's going to end that way. If it doesn't, then we need to address that ahead of time and work strategically through change management practices to get us there so that we kick off and we are successful. So you can see here we have what's the cost if you don't do that, if change management is not well considered. From an implementation standpoint, you can certainly go over budget. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest risks in general. Missing milestones as well, project delays, negative impact to current and future customers. Those are all things that we see, experience, and need to mitigate through the process of change management and being responsible with the way that you manage these projects. Across workforce too, and internally, there's loss of productivity, poor quality of data, poor quality of work, turnover of valued employees. People can get burnt out and frustrated if they really don't understand why they're doing what they're doing and what the end goal is, and they're not constantly reminded and brought into the fold on that. And it can have a negative impact again on current and future customers from that internal perspective as well. I think with that, we'll move on and talk about, with D here, kind of the evolution of change management. And this is a slide that we actually use with our clients when we're talking about large projects, to help depict the feelings that we all get, whether it's a large project or a small project, and what we need to do about those things. So Dee, I'll hand it to you. You're on mute.
You guys missed how eloquent I was. Again, hi everybody. My name is Dee Pucciarelli. I am the ProLink Director of Customer Success. Thanks for joining us today. If you joined us in our last webinars and you're following the series, we talk about what to know ahead of an implementation. And we touch point on the importance of having an organizational change management strategy as part of your software implementation. As Brianna explained, change management addresses the people side of the organization change. And overlooking or not addressing this aspect of your implementation will result in negative impact in your hard and your soft benefits. And I think by now we all agree organizational change management is important, but where do we start? It is overwhelming. And at some point, you need to take the time to decide if you want to do it and how you're going to do it. So everything starts with an evaluation. How do your workforce feel about their current workload? And what do they really know about the upcoming change? Although what you see right now is a customized version of a change curve, it is based on the real Cobbler-Ross change curve. Cobbler explained that no matter what change is, how big or small, personal or not personal, everyone goes through the change curve at their own pace, and everyone hits every single stage along the way. Now, storytelling, because I think it's important. In my last company, we had an HRIS and a sales marketing software implementation scheduled for the same year. And as you can imagine, our staff was going to be hit with a tsunami of changes. To introduce our staff to change management, we created the Name the Emoji game. The quotes you see right now under the emojis for each state are quotes that actual employees submitted to represent the emoji's feelings for when facing those changes. I think this is pretty powerful because as we work on this, they align perfectly with the change curve, which prove that we all go through this, doesn't matter what it is. The goal is to get as many people as possible out of the valley of despair and into the last stages. Why out of the valley of despair? If you can see on the slide, the valley of despair results in productivity loss, turnover, and a direct impact to your customers. To successfully move through the change curve, you must take them through each step in this specific order. The stages you see at the top of the slide, the awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcements are the core stages of the ADKAR methodology. This is just one of many organizational change management methodologies out there. Research them and determine which one suits your agency better. Pick one, or pick and choose from multiple methodologies and create your own, create a hybrid. What is important is that at the end, you need to have a solid organizational change management strategy for your software implementation in this particular case. So next time you have a new project, process improvements or operational changes, ask yourself, where am I in this curve? Where is my staff? And determine what can you do? How can you help them move out of the valley of despair and into embracing the mode of I got this? And if you don't know and you need help, you need ideas, want to brainstorm, reach out to our customer success team and we will talk about it and we can, give you some pointers. Next.
Thanks, Dee.
So now that we understand the emotional side of the equation, let's discuss the key components for a successful implementation. Before we cover the most common change management activities and tools, let me pause for a second and remind everybody what Bree just mentioned at the beginning, which is not all of this will apply to every initiative. It is not a one-size-fits-all. The tools and activities that you will use in your project will be based on the project type, size, and urgency. So don't get overwhelmed. It's not everything, but we will go over these tools, give you a little bit of a description so you know what they are, and then you can research them on your own. Communication plan. The most common definition of a communication plan is that it's used to define who needs to be aware of and inform about the project, how often the information will be distributed, and who will be responsible for the distribution, which is all true. But I'm here to tell you that this is not enough. It is not enough to just say, I'm going to send a communication every week with a progress report. Effective change requires effective communication planning, and it requires ongoing attention. And repetition is key. Consider your audience. Internally, you will have executive, leadership, supervisors, staff. Externally, you can have your clients, your third-party vendors, collaborators, and each one of them will be impacted by your software implementation in a different way. Also consider what communication channels are available to you. With nowadays, email, company chat, company website, newsletter, bulletin boards, videos, memes, infographics, press releases. You have a rainbow of communication channels. You just need to be super creative. You have the tools. And finally, and super important, make sure that you identify and document how the new software is going to benefit each and every single one of your audiences. The benefits are called what's in it for me, so you can Google those, or wisdoms, and they are different for each audience. You need to push them in all your communications, and all your communications have to be tailored to those audiences, okay? And yes, I took a little bit of time because communication plan is key at the beginning, during, and especially after your software implementation. Let's talk a little bit about coaching plans. The first type of coaching that you need to set up, hands down, is change management training for your executives and leadership. Your managers should be equipped with the knowledge they need to drive change with their departments. This is not something that people know. This is not something that you will acquire with your experience. This is something that is taught and learned. So it's better that everybody's on the same page, and you get everybody on the same page by coaching them and giving them the knowledge and the tools that they need in order to push and manage change in their individual business units and departments. Resistance management plans. It is unrealistic to expect that every employee will be 100% on board with every change. And no, sending an email saying that you need to be on board is not enough either. Your change management team should be able to identify the steps that are required to understand and manage resistance across your organization. And again, that's why you have to coach them. Give them the tools, what things they need to do when talking to a specific employee that is not on board, and how they can bring them back into the fold. Organizational readiness assessment, stakeholders interviews. The staff service can help you determine where in the change curve they are, so you can then start planning how you can support and help them. Now, Training tutorials and education sessions. This is basically your training plan. What I can say about that is do not limit yourself and your staff to just user training prior to the software go live. As an example, you might want to consider software demos for your staff before you start the project. Chances are your regular staff have not seen the software. So show it to them. Tell them what the benefits are. Show them what things they can do in the software they're not able to do right now. Think about what they need to know before, during, and after the implementation and how you can support it. Feedback forums, data collection, and feedback analysis tools. Once your change is implemented, you need to know how it's progressing. You need employee feedback to help you discern what's working, what's confusing, what are the pain points, and what you can do to help. What they want from you. Do I want more training? Because I forgot during my user training how I was supposed to do this. Once you have that knowledge, you can take the steps necessary to address those issues. And you should be working with your software provider, in this case, us, with those training sessions and those reinforcement sessions for your staff. On the software adoption strategy, these steps will be part of your software adoption strategy, everything that we just mentioned. But we're going to table that for now because we'll talk about it in our next slide. Finally, continuous improvement plans. Continuous improvement is key by looking for new ways to help your employees use and adopt your new software. You are reinforcing your commitment to your operational excellence, to your staff and agency. Chances are that with any software, you are purchasing 10 modules, but when you go live, you're only using 6. You need to have a process in how you are going to be releasing those in the future, how you're going to support it, what will be the training, and how you can improve the ones that are already there to make it better. So that's your continuous improvement plan, which also falls into your software adoption strategy. Next.
Thanks, Dee. So talking a little bit about then, it says support here. So I'll just bring attention to these bubbles. There's the green one that says not all of these apply with every initiative that Dee was discussing. And then there's the one that says you need these to have a successful implementation. And I also want to make note to everyone, we have quite a few existing clients that are on this webinar right now. And so not everybody's going through a new ProLinkHFA implementation. In fact, probably the majority are not, right? But even with adoption of additional modules, which we're doing quite a bit of this year, there's a lot of that going on in the projects that we have across our clients this year. And continuing to work with your teams to adopt and utilize the system, utilize ProLink, and marry that with your business processes as those evolve and change. These concepts still, apply to those projects as well quite a bit. But these things that you will need for sure, they do too. And so we'll run through those. Visible executive sponsorship, I think, is probably the most important thing for a relationship with your vendor as a software provider at all times, really, from the very first implementation process, that first day as partners, and then going through customer success and having that maybe not as much time from that executive sponsor, but still having that interest and dedication and genuine concern visibly from the executive sponsor and to the team and to the vendor. I think it's incredibly important, and that's where we see a ton of progress made. So that's really key, and it needs to start from the very beginning. It's one of those things where if it's not visible from the very beginning, we ask questions at the very beginning because we want to make sure that we're off to the races, right? We're off on good footing from the very start. Change management expertise, that's one where with existing clients on maybe smaller projects, maybe you don't have an expert in change management involved, but I think it's important that we're all aware of the tools that are part of the change management toolbox, and we can assess when we need help in coming up with a strategy. And we can assess, I know I'm not a project manager, but I certainly know when I need a project manager involved in a project, right? So that's kind of the understanding and knowledge that we need to have to make good choices and make sure that we have the right people involved in these projects. With a large scale implementation, for those of you considering that, I mean, change management expertise that's within that core team of managing the project, whether it's an outside party, enrolling someone at ProLink, or internal, is important. Having a project manager dedicated to that project is very important. And then again, with your vendor, with your software vendor, it is very important that they consider change management activities as part of that scope of work that they are presenting you with. I'll say, generally speaking, when I look back, when my team has reflected on implementations, that retro that you have, right? No, all these projects are large, especially full implementations. They're large. Not everything's going to go perfectly. Generally speaking, it's not a technical issue that we wish we could have done differently, that we plan to do differently in the future. It usually has to do with planning, the way that we communicated steps, the way that we strategized and really planned for things. That's usually the takeaways and the improvements that we need to make. It's very rarely a technical issue or thing that we want to improve. So again, it's important that your partner is aware of the importance of those activities and incorporates that and considers that as part of the project in the SOW. Okay.
Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about organizational readiness and software adoption. So basically, in a nutshell, organizational readiness is taking the necessary steps to adopt and embrace new technology into your agency to ensure your employees become more effective as a result during and especially after your implementation. So when we say software adoption, in most cases, our mind immediately goes to post-implementation. We're done. What are we doing now? And it's true. You need to do that. You need to have a software adoption strategy post-implementation. But don't forget your staff, not the project team, your staff during your implementation. This is the moment in an implementation of our size, if you're doing HFA, is going to be 10, 12 months, a year of an implementation from the moment that you sign that contract, all the planning, the execution, and so forth. And it's usually with a small core team of staff agency that are part of the project team. And through the project plan, we start getting SMEs coming in and out. This is not all your staff. This is the opportunity to take in consideration, what can I do to promote software adoption with the regular staff? Let me give you an example. We can easily have communications out to the staff that basically highlight, like I mentioned before, the things that the software is going to do for them better. If they have a workaround, if they don't know how to do something today, or it's too difficult for them, if you set up a series of emails, in this case, just to make it easy, an email that just said, do you know that in ProLink, you can do this, this, and this? Do you know, next time, do you know that in ProLink, you can manage your entire compliance process? And then give them specific things that you're addressing with the software that are pain points today. That is going to create excitement. It's going to create awareness among your staff. And it's going to, that curve that we're talking about, you want them to be in a receptive stage by the time you go live. You want them to be like, I cannot wait for this. And that is not going to happen if you don't move forward with addressing and creating that excitement and that awareness during the implementation. And yes, it will be additional tasks and additional work, but it will pay off.
Yeah, I'd say also with that communication, it will get people excited for sure. It will also inspire questions from your team if they have concerns or doubts or feel like that's not the case, that it won't be handled. questions are going to bubble up, people are going to respond, and then you're going to be able to have the chance to alleviate those concerns. And that's important too, which, adds to that buy-in and collective team effort as you go through the project. So some of this is to almost push out of people their concerns. You're sharing and getting them excited, but then if they have real concerns, you're giving them the opportunity to respond as well.
Mm-hmm. And with that also comes, which is sometimes agencies and companies in general are hesitant, but the same way that you're pushing out information to them to create awareness and excitement, you should put together some sort of way for them to provide you feedback without any feelings of there's going to be issues if they see my name on it, repercussions for them. They should be able to say, hey, I saw that now we're going to do the compliance processing here, and this is great, but what about this, this, and this? They should be able to submit a form, a ticket, or set up already a process where they need to talk to the business lead, who is the person that is in the project team, kind of like to bubble up their questions and then answer back. Again, it's about mitigating and answering and making them part of the project. The most common scenarios that I have seen, and this is by no means a bad scenario, is the most common, is you are going to have a good project team, a good implementation team. And from the perspective of the project budget, scope, and schedule, everything is going according to plan. But we forgot about the staff. We forgot about the awareness. We forgot to include them and fold them into the implementation process. So now everything is running perfectly as long as you have this core team together. You go live, the core team goes back to their normal daily routines and works. And 2-3 years later, you are back where you started. There is no lack of adoptions. There are a lot of workarounds, lots of productivity, and you're wondering why this is happening. Well, either lack of a good software adoption strategy or no software adoption strategy, because everybody goes back and leadership has the expectations that they need to produce, that all the benefits are going to happen, but they have all the willingness, they really want to do it, but they need to be supported. They need to understand that there is a transition. We need to understand that they need to be able to come back to not only you, but also to the software provider with, this is a lot of information. I need a reinforcement training, or I'm setting up my procedures now with my team, and I need to talk to ProLink, in our case, to discuss what would be the best way to implement this little process that I have, that it was not discussed during the big implementation. So how do we develop this as a software adoption strategy? Again, this is something that needs to happen from the beginning of the implementation with the support of the executive, understanding that this is something that is going to happen. And the expectation is that everybody's going to do it, collaborating with us or your software provider, and making sure that you incorporate tasks in your project plan to address your staff, the awareness, the communication. It doesn't have to be complicated. And then after the implementation, but before you go live, sit down with your software provider, with your team, listen to your staff, and come up with your roadmap for after go live. Are you going to do surveys 3, 6, 9 months after you went live? Are you going to give your staff professional services hours for them to be able to feel free to go and talk to their software provider for those questions about processes? How do I do that better? Do you want to assign someone within your company to really manage your new software? A new software is like a program. If it's not managed, if it's not pushed, if you don't have someone paying attention to the new releases, pay attention that we already provide in our business case all the benefits that we wanted to get out of this software. Are you measuring them? Are you reporting back? And if not, you are going to go back 3 years later to looking for a new software or having issues. So from the beginning, it is good to have those conversations, and it is a business decision. And at ProLink, we're here to help you, and we can give you pointers, we can give you best practices and suggestions, but ultimately, this is yours, and this is something that you have to do internally with our help, but it was yours. Next.
Sorry, couldn't get myself off mute there. So taking this to the next level, just thinking about what questions to ask and consider. Executive sponsorship, I already had my 2 cents on that. I've had it a few times in this venue. I will continue to preach on that importance. But there's different, not every project looks the same way with that level of involvement. I would think just in general, your leadership involvement, I think it's important that everybody's on the same page and talks about what that's going to look like and what measures are going to be taken based off of availability and expected participation. On some projects, we're working with the highest levels of leadership the whole time. In some projects, we're working directly with directors of asset management, compliance. I mean, that's probably the ideal scenario, right? Is that you have that accessibility and participation, but that's not always reasonable. That's not always the case. So what is important? Why do we need that leadership, and what's going to be in place to keep them aware, involved, and get them to participate and be active in the project on maybe a lesser level? So what communication efforts are going to be made to keep them updated and aware and involved when they need to be involved? So change management expertise in-house, we talked about that already, and reaching out to us or your other partners when you feel you need that is important. It should not be ignored. It should be discussed and planned for. Your change management approach, there's a whole bunch out there. And like Dee said earlier, it's not one size fits all. You don't need to select one single methodology and incorporate it, but it is something that should be discussed and collaborated on across the different tools in that toolbox. And then process improvement as well. I think the most important thing that we've discussed in ProLink is that everyone needs to be able to speak that same language, regardless of whether it's one methodology or a hodgepodge between them. Make sure that it's understood across your team, because you think everyone thinks the way you do, but really they don't, and assumptions will be made and gaps will be there. So it is important to discuss that and have a plan that everybody's aware of and understands, so that the project runs as smooth as possible.
Mm-hmm. I do want to touch point a little bit on, do you have the change management expertise in-house? And this is something that happened to me. I want to share this experience with you. With the two big in software implementation that we had, I couldn't do it all. My team couldn't do it all. And we were the PMO team. I couldn't have, two project teams, implementation teams in each of one of these big implementations, and on top of that, do the organizational readiness and software adoption during the course of the project. So you will be surprised. You will be surprised. I like 99% guarantee that you will be surprised. We send out a communication to all the staff out there. And we basically went, what do we need for the change management team, the organizational readiness team? Well, we need someone that knows change management. We need someone that knows process improvements. And we need someone to basically know about communications, videos, infographics. And we send out a communication, and we basically say, hey, if you have experience on this, and this, come up, work with us. And we provided with incentives for them. And then suddenly I have an organizational readiness team of 15 people to pick from. So don't limit yourself. Ask. More likely, chances are that you do have some expertise in-house. You just need to ask them to help. Really talk about this. Appoint a project manager. Super important. The collaboration between the implementation team and the agencies is key. And the only way that is going to happen when both project management teams are aligned. So that is super important. Promote staff inclusion, empowerment, and ownership by identifying business leads to become super users. That has to happen at the beginning. You already have those people that are predetermined that they want to be part of the project, that they want their supervisors, their team leads. You want to identify them because you need to have a plan for them for post-implementation. They will be the ones driving your software adoption. And again, provide executive and leadership training, coaching, and effective communication, change, and resistance management. Again, everybody needs to know how to put change management. Everybody needs to understand what they need to say, how they need to handle the staff or certain situations. And the only way to do that is by talking about it and providing coaching to them. And then to wrap it up, after we talk about this, what you need to include in your software adoption to go the distance after go live. You need to create a super users. That's what we recommend. Create a super user, early adopters, ProLink steering committee that is going to manage the entire ProLinkHFA platform. Develop and reinforcement training plan, post go live. What is it that you're going to do for them? You need to perform staff assessments. That could be yearly, 6 months. I would recommend 6 months, 9 months, and then do one every year. Develop a resistance management plan. People are going to be so overwhelmed after you go live that there's going to be crickets. About 9 months into it, they're going to start bubbling up why they like, why they don't like. You need to know about those and you need to manage it. And collect their employee feedback. What are their pain points and how we can solve those? And develop that post-go live roadmap. What are the things that you want? I'm sure that there will be certain elements that will happen post-go live, but as everything progresses, the industry change, you will have new requests for ProLink. Can we do this? We have a new program. How can we improve this and this? Then work with us, work with your software provider, and how we can work on that roadmap to make it happen.
Thanks, Dee. Okay, and thank you for holding on with us. We're a couple minutes over, so we'll wrap up for today. We appreciate the time in covering change management with us. Our next topic, which is going to conclude this quarter of our theme for adoption and implementation best practices, we're going to go into what does good customer success look like? What does a good customer success program look like during implementation and beyond? So during that process, teeing you up. And then over the years, what does that look like? So please join us next time. It'll be the first Wednesday in April on April 5th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So thank you. I guess it will be kind of Easter time too. We're getting close there. So have a good one. Thank you for your participation and we'll see you next time.
Bye guys. Thank you.